Okay, so today we'll start the last part of our first module, that is atomic structure, and this will be a small lecture, smaller than the others one. It is about the band structure of solids and the role of doping in band structure. So doping and band structure you already were introduced, I think, in your plus 2 level, but let's see if we can find out some new aspects of this band structure and doping. Okay, so to start with, let us first discuss that what is band theory, why it is on the first place called band theory. Because see, in the first diagram, that is in A, what we have in this picture, it is shown that there are 5 atoms, and suppose they are all similar atoms. Let us consider they are the same atoms. So suppose now you consider a single atom. Suppose there is a single atom, and we are considering is level, energy level of its orbital, right? So there will be a single orbital. Right? Single orbital means I am only drawing that orbital which is the highest occupied. Okay, so I am only drawing the HOMO of this one. So there will be only one HOMO here. Now if there is 5 same type of atoms, right, there should be 5 HOMOs, but they should be same in energy, they should be equal in energy theoretically, isn't it? Because they are of the same type. But you see, suppose there is a piece of chalk or piece of silicon or piece of iron, whatever, right? The iron, the atom of iron that is on the surface, right, on the surface, and the atom of iron that is exactly in the middle, right? So these two cannot have the same environment. As they do not have the same environment, right, what happens? Their energies, the orbital energies also differ, though by very little amount they differ, but they do differ in energies. Right? So what happens? Suppose now we have 5 orbital energies. Right? Of course, I have drawn this gap very large for our clarity, but these are again very small gaps. Right? They are not very large gaps. They are very close to each other, these 5 one, but they are not exactly same. That is important. They are not exactly same. They differ very little, but they do differ. Right? So we have like this. Now next section, in the next panel, in the B, we have a bit large number of atoms. Right? So the number of these energy levels also increases, number of orbital energies, right? They are very close to each other, right? And if you have large number of atoms, I mean, if you say a 1 centimeter cube, right? If I draw a 1 centimeter cube here, right? This can contain like 10 to the power, in the range of 10 to the power 22 atoms. Nearly. So you can easily say that if I have just this amount of atom, then I will end up with 10 to the power 22 lines. Right? Now it is not possible for me to draw this 10 to the power 22 lines, right? So what it will look like? Imagine what it will look like. You have 10 to the power 22 lines, right? And in between this one, suppose here, right, in between these two boundaries, you have 10 to the power 22 lines. In fact, the atomic energies are not even this gap apart. Suppose only this much. Now in between this gap, you have 10 to the power 22 lines. How it will look like? You cannot discern between the lines, right? You cannot separately see each lines. What you will see, it will look like, suppose it is a band, right? so close to each other that it will look like a solid band. That's why this is called this band theory. Right? Of course. Okay. So in solids we have this kind of band structures. So they are nothing. They are actually clubbing up of atomic orbitals. When you have this filled or partially filled orbitals, you call it as valence bond, as we have drawn it here, suppose as HOMOs, right? If you draw the LUMOS, you will have a vacant band, and which you call your conduction band. This is why we called it a band theory. After discussing this band theory, what we have here, we have three different structures which you are very familiar with, right? See, there can be several aspects to these band gaps. Right? Suppose in some elements, right, like our metals, right, what we have there, we have either partially filled bands, these are partially filled bands, so, or very close bands that are overlapping. That means a filled band and a empty band, they are overlapping with each other. In both cases, what will happen? Electron can freely move from one place to another. Right? As if there is no energy barrier. There is energy barrier, but these energy barriers is enough. It can be overcome by at room temperature or normal temperatures, right? So electron can freely move, and this leads to conduction of electricity, right? So these are called conductors. Right? Good conductors have this kind of band structures. On the other hand, most of the non-metals have large gap between the valence band and the conduction band. As such, even if you give large amount of energy, it is difficult to promote one electron from this valence band to this conduction band. You can do it, but if you put too much energy, what will happen? The crystal structure will break down, right? The structure itself will break down. Right? So, as such, this is called forbidden zone, or it is the large energy gap, right? So, you cannot overcome this energy gap, right, by normal temperature or even at elevated temperatures, right? This is the case where we call the substances as insulators. So, they do not conduct electricity. But there are few cases where there is a gap, right, but the gap is small. The gap cannot be overcome at normal temperatures, right? They do not. So at that time they act as good as insulators. But as you raise the temperature, right, electrons can move from this conduction band, valence band to the conduction band, right, by small amount of energy, by giving small energy. You do not need large energy so that you can destroy the structure, right? And at that elevated temperature, they conduct electricity. And these is substances. These are substances that we call semiconductors. So, what is the difference between semiconductors and insulators? So, insulators cannot conduct electricity at normal or even at higher temperatures, whereas semiconductors do not conduct electricity at normal temperature or at low temperatures, I should say, but they conduct electricity at higher temperatures. And the difference between metal and semiconductor is metal conducts electricity at any temperature, right? Okay. Now, going by these band gaps, right, here on the left, the picture on the left, that is panel A, is showing the band, a small band gap, and this is for semiconductors, right? the average band gap for a semiconductor, I mean to substance to act as a semiconductor, right, is nearly 1 electron volt, right? It's nearly 1 electron volt. You see there are examples of several semiconductors, germanium, silicon, that is, now this is a alloy type, I mean doped, right? This is again a gallium and arsenic, so this is again doped, right? So there are several types of semiconductors, and all of them has energy gap equal to or low or very close to 1, right, electron volt. Whereas the insulators, for insulators you have band gaps that are greater than 3 electron volt. See, diamond, boron nitride and alumina, right? These are very good examples of insulators, all have very high energy gap. So diamond, you cannot do not conduct electricity even at very high temperatures, but these gaps can be overcome by supplying small amount of energy. So this is our band theory about semiconductors, or I should say solids, right? And we are interested in semiconductors. Okay. Now in semiconductors, see in the last slide also there is germanium, so pure element, silicon pure element. Now this is indium and antimony, this is not a pure element, gallium and arsenic, this is again not a pure element. So these semiconductors, right, as the band gap is small, you can promote the electrons from the valence bond to the conduction band by supplying small amount of energy, and as such they can conduct electricity. Fine. Now this silicon and germanium case, you see, for the case of silicon, right, so same will be the case of germanium also. See, this is our solid state structure of silicon. It is similar to diamond structure, right? In diamond also you have read that carbons are in tetrahedral arrangement, right? They are again bonded to 4 other carbons. All carbons are bonded to 4 other carbons, and this bond energy is very high, very strong bond, carbon-carbon bond. So as a whole the bond energy becomes very high, right? So to break the carbon-carbon bond in diamond, right, you need to supply very large amount of energy, and so it is the hardest substance. So silicon being in the same group, just below carbon, so it has also same type of structures, right? See, you can, if you identify the tetrahedrons here, these are the tetrahedrons, right? These are the tetrahedrons, right, of silicon. Now silicon is larger than carbon, right? The atomic radius of silicon is larger than carbon, right? Carbon is this much and silicon is bigger, right? As such, the p orbitals that is involved here, right, for the sp3 hybridization, right, cannot overlap much, right? They do not overlap with each other much. So this bond is not strong as this carbon-carbon bond. Silicon-silicon bond is not strong, is weak than carbon-carbon bond, right? So they can be easily broken. Easily broken means broken at an elevated temperature. And when broken, this electron, where it will go? It will go to the unhybridized d orbitals, right, which is vacant there, which is absent in carbon. Now, so the d orbital now here in silicon can form the conduction band. Okay, so that's why silicon acts as semiconductors. Same is the case with germanium also. Now, if you have noted here, germanium has 0.7 and silicon has 1.12. That means for germanium this gap is even lower, right? So germanium can conduct electricity at even lower temperature than silicon. Now this silicon and germanium are called intrinsic semiconductors, or you can say these are pure semiconductors. That means these properties of semiconductor for silicon and germanium are intrinsic. That means they are inherent to silicon, right? It does not matter where the silicon is. It is in Earth, Moon, or in Mars, right? Silicon will always show that amount of conduction of electricity at particular temperature, or germanium will do that, right? These are called intrinsic semiconductor. These are intrinsic or inherent behavior of that elements, right? But in all cases you do not have that. Now you can say that if I go on increasing the temperature, more and more electrons will go from valence band to conduction band, and we can go on increasing the conduction power. But that will not happen, right? If you increase the temperature more, that is more than 100 degrees centigrade, right, this crystal structure actually breaks down, right, and the system will collapse. Okay. Now there are substances which do not conduct electricity or do not act as semiconductor at elevated temperature also. But it has been seen that if you add some impurities, that is called doping, right, to those substances, they can now act as electricity. See, these are the structure of silicon, right? Now this is the same diagram as this one. Right? This is very easy to understand because these are the silicons, right? Each silicon have four valence electron to them, right? There is another silicon, so here, and you share up and form a bond. This is shown here, right? So each of them is forming a bond with the other silicon. Right? The 4-dimensional structure is shown in 3-dimensional. Now if this is a perfect crystal, right, if it remains like this, it will never conduct electricity because there are no free electrons. You cannot find any free electrons here, right? So there will be no free electrons. So, but where we get free electrons? When you heat it, one or two bonds, few bonds are broken. When the bonds are broken, you get free electrons. Okay, but that is at higher temperature. But can silicon conduct electricity even at low temperature? Yes, the answer is yes, and that is by doping. Now say, if you have doped this electron with arsenic, this silicon with arsenic. Now arsenic, what? Arsenic is a group 5 element, and this one, unlike silicon, has a 5th electron. Yeah. So let me put this 5th electron as a star. This 5th electron is free now because arsenic has found 4 bonds with the 4 silicon atoms with its 4 valence electron. The 5th electron is left over here. This electron is free to move. Right? Now this can conduct electricity at low temperature compared to silicon. So silicon, when doped with arsenic, can conduct electricity like this. Now on the other hand, if you can dope this silicon with, say, boron, like this boron, right? Boron is a group 3 element, right? Now it has only 3 valence electron. Now if you have it here, it has, you can bond 3 bonds, fine, with 3 silicon atoms, but one of the silicon neighbor here cannot find an electron here, and that bond, or it is only formed by only a single electron, right? And there is a gap there which we call a hole, right? A positive hole, or no electron is here. Now this gap can be taken up by neighboring electrons here. Now when this neighboring electron is taking up this gap, what will happen? A gap will be here. This can be taken up here. A gap will be here. This can be taken up here. A gap will be here. This can be taken up here. A gap will be here. So as if what is happening is this electron here is moving here. So a movement of electron is here. Right? So as such, these also conduct electricity, right, at lower temperature than that of silicon. So doping actually increases the semiconductor property of the existing intrinsic semiconductor, and it can also increase the semiconductor property, or it can induce the semiconductor property of elements who do not show semiconductor property at normal temperature, right? Okay, so this boron type of thing can be imagined. Suppose if there is a chain of chairs, right? There is chain of chairs here, right? And suppose one chair is vacant here, and all are other filled. Now a person comes here, so he does not want to go here, right? So you are asked to move one places away. So if you move one place away from here and right, so this one ultimately will be vacant, and this person can occupy this chair. So what has happened? Actually, this hole has been transported here. So this is the doping properties of extrinsic semiconductor, and these, why they are called extrinsic semiconductor, because these properties were not inherent to them, right? They are not born with these properties, right? These were actually induced. That's why they are called extrinsic semiconductors. And germanium and silicon are called intrinsic semiconductor. And one more nomenclature is this: when you dope with elements which have extra electrons, we call them N-type semiconductors. N-type semiconductors, right? N stands for negative. And when you dope semiconductors or elements with a electron deficient element, right, like boron, so we have a hole, positive hole here, we call them P-type semiconductor. This stands for positive. Okay. Now let us see how this doping actually facilitates, how this doping works, right? Why they help in conduction of electricity at lower temperature. See, we have two diagrams here. One is for N-type, one is for P-type. Let us discuss the N-type first. Now forget about this donor band, right? Suppose this donor band is not there. Only the valence bond and this conduction band is here. This is for pure silicon, this is also for pure silicon. So what is the band gap? This is our band gap. Okay, this is the band gap here. Suppose say this is E1. Okay, now you have a arsenic atom here, not A, right? There are few arsenic atoms, right, compared to the number of silicon atoms. When you dope it, means there is only few arsenic atoms. Now these arsenic atoms have their own conduction bands, your valence bands. Now these mobile electrons, right, as they are not bonded, they will of higher energy, so they will form a donor band here. These are called donor bands. Why donor bands? Because electron will go from there, right? So these are donor band. Okay, now this donor band is filled with electrons of what? Arsenic. That means the doping agent. These are filled with electrons of the doping agent, right? Now see, if you apply heat or even at lower temperature, for conduction of electricity, the electron have to travel. Electron do not have to travel from valence band to conduction band, right? It do not have to cover energy gap of E1. It is enough if it covers the energy gap of only this much. Suppose this is the E2, and where E1 is greater than E2, right? Because now electron can only jump from here. See, conduction of electricity depend on movement of electron. It does not care electron is coming from where. Right? If it collects from valence bond, fine. If it collects comes from donor band, then also there will be conduction of electricity. Right? So in this case, this substance compared to pure silicon will conduct electricity even at lower temperature, or because this energy gap is now lower than that of pure silicon, right? Pure silicon, right? So you can conduct electricity at lower temperature. So this was the discussion for N-type semiconductors. How N-type semiconductor helps in conduction of electricity at lower temperature. How do they do that? They do that by position of donor band between the valence bond or above the valence bond, so that the energy gap between the the effective valence bond and the conduction band decreases. Now come to the p-type. Now suppose there is an hole here. Now these holes will also have an energy gap, and these energy gaps, as they are actually they are half filled bonds, right? They can be accepted as they are half filled type of bonds, right? They are actually bit stabilized than the conduction band itself. They are now above the donor band, but they are below conduction band. Now they are below conduction band. This is for boron. This is for the impurity. Now again, we just need the movement of electrons. Now electrons do not have to jump from valence band to conduction band for this conduction of electricity. They can do conduction of electricity only if the electron jump from valence band to acceptor band, isn't it? These are also vacant. Now if the electron jumps here, there will be conduction of electricity. Okay, so here also the band gap actually has decreased, and the conduction of electricity will take place at lower temperature. As such, both N-type and P-type can increase the effectivity of this ability of semiconductors, that they can conduct electricity at even lower temperature. And these bands collectively is called impurity bands. This donor band for N-type and acceptor band for P-type. Right? These are called impurity bands. Okay. Now, the last topic of discussion here, we will see how this conduction changes with your temperature. Right? Now, we have these N-type semiconductors, and this is P-type. Now the type of curve will be similar. The values will be different, but it will be similar. Right? So I will discuss only one here. Let us say we discuss the N-type first. So this is on the y-axis we have our conductivity, and on the x-axis we have our temperature. Okay. Now see, suppose let us draw the pure semiconductor first, say pure silicon. How it will work? It will work like this. Suppose this blue line indicates the conductivity of pure silicon. So it does not conduct at some temperatures above zero, near zero. Suppose it starts here. Now when it starts, it slowly goes on as you increase the temperature, and after that those disruption of the crystal structure, collapsing of crystal structure happens. Suppose we are not going into that. Okay, so it goes on like this, right? It may not be a straight line, but it goes on like this. Now you have let us say you have an impurity, so you have a donor band here. Now this energy gap is lower. Now the conduction will start at low level, low temperature, so it will look like this, isn't it? It will look like this. Okay. So now for N type, this red line is the curve. Now see, let us say, now this donor band, as we said, it is from arsenic. Now this arsenic, this is limited. This is not enough. There is not enough arsenic there. It is only a small amount. It is impurity. It is dope. So suppose in 1 lakh there is only 1 lakh, for 1 lakh of silicon atom there is only 1 arsenic atom, right? So what will happen? The electrons, as you go on increasing the temperature, the electron will be finished, right? All the electrons will be gone to the conduction band when you increase the temperature to a certain extent. So it will be empty now. At that point it will be constant. It will not change. And after some time, what will happen? As you go on increasing the temperature, now electrons will go from silicon band to the conduction band, that is valence bond to conduction band, and that curve will be same as that of pure silicon, right? So we can write that this part, only up to this part, suppose we say that is A to B, is for extrinsic semiconductor, right? And to C to D is for intrinsic semiconductor, right? This is for intrinsic and this is for extrinsic. And what will be the middle part? Middle part is called the donor level exhaustion zone for N type. Why donor level exhaustion? Because it is exhausted. There is no more electron there in the donor band. That is why it is called donor level exhaustion zone or N type semiconductor. And same will be the discussion with your P type. For P type also, it will start early at lower temperature, and after some time this is again limited space is there. So it will be filled with electron now after a certain temperature. So there will be no more gap and no more conduction of electricity will occur. And after some time, when the temperature reaches enough for electron to jump from valence bond to conduction band, then only it will increase. So the type of curve will be same, but only the name will change here from B to C. For P type, it is called acceptor level saturation zone, because it is now saturated, it is filled up, right? That's why it is called acceptor level saturation zone. Okay. So if it is asked in examination that explain the temperature behavior, conductivity behavior with temperature for N type or P type, you have to level dot this type of diagram and explain it. But be careful not to write both of them, right? If it is as N type, then write only this donor level exhaustion. If it is as P type, write only acceptor level saturation zone. Okay. So with this we conclude our today's lecture and also the module 1, the atomic and molecular structure, right? Now from in the next lecture, in the next class, we'll start a new module, right? Preferably I think I will start spectroscopy there, which will be a new topic for, I think, from all of you, right?